some of sustainability to farmers just comes second nature. If you
Yes.
asked a farmer, are you sustainable? They'd probably look at you maybe a little funny and say, I don't think I'm doing anything that special, but it really is just what they do. We're all farmers, and our goal is taking the best care of our land, our cattle, our natural resources.
Some people, when the economy goes soft, they can move, or their job shuts down, or their plant moves. Farming, we don't move. We stay put here. So we're concerned about the environment, the air, the water quality.
All of us play a role in the system, and we have stake in it. And I think we should exercise that power we have in the food system.
Hi, I'm Tara Vanderdusen. I work here with all of my husband and my brother-in-laws and my father-in-law on our family dairy farm here in eastern New Mexico. Here in New Mexico, one of our most precious resources is our water. We just are in, varying levels of droughts throughout the last several years, as well as just a declining water table. And so one of the most important things we can do is conserve our water. And one area where we use a lot of water is watering our crops. And so one thing that we have done is we are changing out the variety of crops that we plant. So this behind me is hay grazer, which is a drought-tolerant crop. One of my favorite parts of our sustainability stories is actually what we feed our cows. If you're wearing cotton right now, when you make cotton, there's a seed that's left over. And so our cattle actually eat that. It's a great source of protein for them. Another piece of our sustainability story is that we use peanut shells for bedding for our calves. As we all know, on dairy farms, there is a lot of cow manure, but we actually use that cow manure, we compost it, all of it, and we use it out on our fields to improve our soil health. One other thing that we recycle and reuse on our farm is actually old tires. I work specifically as an environmental scientist, so I deal with a lot of the water quality, soil health, and any manure management. For us, it's really about conserving our water. We only have so much. It's a precious resource. We want to be able to have enough for the future generations. So that is why we practice water conservation throughout our farm, not just here in the fields, but also in our barns. So sometimes when I tell people that I'm an environmental scientist working on the farm, it kind of surprises people, but it's really a crucial job in being able to make sure that we're properly managing our soil and our water. As an environmental scientist and as a mom, one of the things that's really important to me is making sure the quality of our water is absolutely at standard and above standard, because the water that we're feeding our cows and that we're using on our farms is the same water that ultimately ends up in our house, that we are drinking, that we are using every single day.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the food. Thank you for all the farmers who made the food.
I'm Doug Darling, and I'm an owner partner with Darling Farms LLC. Our farm's been in our family since 1833. The family migrated from Massachusetts here and settled, and we've been farming ever since. Here on our farm, we've been predominantly no-till since the early 80s, when my dad first tried no-till corn back in like 83. Where we're standing right now is the middle of one of our filter strips. We've got over 49 acres of filter strips on our farm. And what this is under the Conservation Reserve Program, CRP. This filter strip then captures any of the nutrients that might migrate off my cornfield, and that possibly would get into where we periodically get flooding because of the development upstream. And so what we've done is to help mitigate any of that plant food from leaving our property and getting into the water and upsetting the water quality. We've installed these filter strips on a number of our farms. This is our cover crop, and it's a three-way. And what it is, we have oats, we have soybeans, and then we have radishes. And what this does is it captures any of the nutrients that still might be in the soil that was not utilized by the wheat. You can see the wheat stubble here. That's from this summer's crop when we harvested in July. So we've had multiple decades of trying to do things that are good for the environment, good for the soil, and good for water.
I know that my grandpa, he always was saying that he was doing everything for me, everything he did across his life, he was doing for me. And then, you know, that kind of mindset got set into me, and he's not, all the stuff he's doing isn't for me, it's for my son and the next generation, you know. And that just kind of feels good, you know, because you're taking care of the land. It's a resource that we have to take care of, you know, and we've really been really fortunate.
I'm Kamal Bell. I'm a first-generation farmer. A lot of farms like 4th generation or 6th generation, and they already have an infrastructure in place. So literally, when the older farmer gets ready to transition, it's a much easier transition just to give the whole operation to the kids or to someone in the family. But for us, we've had to start literally with nothing. It was an idea that I had. It was a passion, and I take a lot of pride in that, just knowing that I'll be able to do that for my sons. Farming is definitely not easy. I think, especially people my age, I don't think anyone has a job harder. And I solely say that because you're dealing with so many different parameters. You're dealing with the weather, you have to be a carpenter, you have to be an engineer, you have to be a scientist, you have to be a botanist, you have to be a chemist, you have to be all these different roles as a farmer. And farming is very, very difficult, but the love for it drives me. People always ask me, you keep doing so many different things, why farming? So when I was in college, I learned about something called food deserts. And I started to learn on how food, especially healthy food, wasn't made accessible to certain communities based on their socioeconomic status. So instead of me just being like, man, like that's unfair, I decided I was gonna do something or try to do something about it. So I literally changed my major, and I switched from animal science to animal industry, and I just set out on a path to be able to grow food, and our mission here is to get it to people who are affected by food deserts. Sustainability to me means longevity. It's like I value the moment, but I also like to think about things long term, and that's why the youth are so important, because without them being involved and them learning and being exposed to these ideas now, we can't ensure that farming is going to look the way we want it to look if we don't incorporate the youth.
When I first came to the farm, you know, it was like, yeah, come out to the farm and I'll show you how to, you know, we'll learn some farming skills, and I'm thinking it's gonna look how it does now, but instead it looks like a forest. And so I think that actually was a blessing in disguise, because we started to know, like, this is what it means to work for something.
I definitely want this to be a family, something that stays in the family long term.
This is my sustainability story.